update time. So, good news, finally. I've got this thing, I just got back from test drive, two actually. The first one I got out there, now remember I did the last test drive just up and down the road. I had maybe 2 lug nuts per wheel tightened on, the hood was popped. It was just to get out to see if I heard any strange noises, if I looked behind me and half the car was falling out on the road. So I got back, got that all taken care of. Any adjustments that I needed. Matter of fact, some of the cold side on this side here, the piping you could see in the video hanging down. I was never finished with it because remember I still had to take the pipes apart, clean them, put the beads on them and stuff like that. So that's all up now, you can't see it. Been working on the exhaust lately, trying to get it set up. That exhaust is too loud for my liking. I know on a lot of the rear mount systems, people don't run mufflers because they say the turbo itself acts like a muffler. No, not enough for me. I'm 50, going on 52. I don't need that much noise. It's embarrassing. So I've been online looking at. I'm going to run 2 resonators where the pipe Y's out and goes to either side for the outlets, the tips. I'm going to run a resonator in there. I found them as short as 12 inches. Inlet 2 1/4, outlet 2 1/4. The size of the actual resonator is 3 inches though, and that might be an issue with it being so close to the spare tire well up underneath there. So option is there's one made by Thrush that has kind of, instead of it being a straight in and out, it's got like a canter, and then on the other side it's got an opposite canter to where you can, instead of, you can mount it, instead of like this, you can mount it to where the this is straight and then this is the resonator, and instead of being like this you could have it like that. Depends, because then if it positions it too close to the ground, the first time a high center or something on the freeway, it's going to rip a bunch of stuff up underneath there. So the same guy that did the change of the piping for the tile, he's literally 6 minutes from here. I think he's still working actually. So I'm going to look over the resonator options again, get under there, measure. I've looked at some cherry bombs. I don't know if I want red pieces hanging out from underneath the car back there. So just trying to find the cheapest thing to do the job and quiet it down. It shouldn't affect the performance much, if at all. The one cool thing I have to tell you, and this is probably going to be stupid to a bunch of you people, I love the turbo whistle. I love it. On the prior setup, the T25, small turbo, of course, it had the long AEM cold air intake that the filters down here. It was a front mount, so the exhaust all the way back. But I've seen other setups that had turbos on them, larger turbos, and you could hear it fairly predominantly. On mine, you couldn't hear it except for rare times. And usually when you're like up against a brick wall or something like that, you could barely hear it. But the cool thing is, this thing, it's there, not so much idling, like you hear a bunch of them. And I think on those, it's where the pipes jut up through the hood. But this one here, you definitely hear it just lightly accelerating down the road through all the gears. It's pretty cool. I like that part of it. And I've always liked that about the rear mount kits. So the test drive results. As you'll remember from the last update, I put the 10-pound spring in the tile wastegate. And out here just now, I was only seeing 6 on the boost gauge. And you are going to have a pressure drop going through the intercooler, depending on how big your intercooler is and so forth. So I kind of expected that. But there was 2 ways you could set up the wastegate on a rear mount system. If you read the Squire's STS's install guide, which, by the way, this is not an STS kit, this is my own kit, but I found the PDF online and looked for any quirks or any kind of abnormalities when you're mounting a turbo back there that you should watch out for. One of them is the air-fuel ratio. It's going to skew it a little bit. I've got to call the guy again because it doesn't so much mention on that, but I actually talked to Squire and on the phone, and he said if I wanted to call and ask him some questions and stuff like that, feel free to. He even has a lot of exposure with the unit chip, believe it or not, as strange as that is. But we just happened to discover that while talking. But anyway, back to this. You'll lose some PSI. So you can set the wastegate up here close to the manifold, and if you did that, you'd have a different reaction. But I chose to put it in the back, and I knew that I would not realize the same boost that I had back there as I would up here, the boost controller. So I'm running the Grimspeed. It's a reliable boost controller. I ran it on the last car, the last setup that I had, the T25 on this, and it performed flawlessly. What it is, each click, and you have to kind of listen and feel, but each click will give you a 1/4 pound of boost. So every little tick you hear, it's a 1/4 pound. So I had a 10-pound spring in the tile. I was only seeing 6, and so when I got back, I got up underneath there, and I needed 4 more PSI, so 4 times 4, 16 clicks, but I stopped at 12 just to make sure I didn't go over what I wanted, and took it back out, still only running 6. So possibility, I'm going to take the clicks back off, and then I'm going to do my little pressure test from the turbo all the way up to here. I've got those gas cap testers from an old state machine that we had, state inspection machine, and I'm going to use those. I've done that before on the old setup to check for boost leaks, and I found some. So it may just be a couple cranks of a clamp somewhere, I don't know. But so I got to do that, and basically what you do at that point is you clamp pretty much right there at the throttle body. You can actually get it closer, but you want to. It's kind of pointless to put it 6 clamps back because your air leak could be in one of those clamps. So get as close as you can to the throttle body, clamp it down on something, however, whether you improvise it. It could be you take a can of some spray cleaner or something like that, and you cut it in half, and that gives you something of the diameter that you need to clamp your silicone hose on and rig a pressure port up on the front. But anyway, this is easy because it has the pressure ports already on them, and just pressure it up, and a safe pressure here would be 20 pounds. I'm not going to go over 20 pounds with this setup. Run it up to 20 pounds with your air compressor. You'll need a gauge on there, obviously, and then just let it sit and watch the pressure. If it goes down, start spraying each clamp with a light soapy water. That way, as soon as it hits, it'll start bubbling up and leaving like a foam wherever it's leaking from, and then just tighten it down some more, tighten the clamp down, and retest it. So anyway, I'll do that next, just on the off chance I have a boost leak, because if I do, I can sit there and turn that Grimspeed up all the way, and it's just going to keep leaking out. So there's that. Boost comes on, and a lot of people have a problem with these STS rear mount kits, or a rear mount kit in general, because they feel it adds too much lag. And I've seen video after video, and some of these videos were specifically had the camera sitting to debunk the boost lag. It comes down to what size turbo you run, basically. I could have ran the T25, but the problem with running the T25 for me was, in the situation before, I could never race from a dig. First gear was useless, some a second. I always had to run from 30 on. It's not practical most times. I like drag racing. I like some circuit racing. I don't care for NASCAR, go around a circle for hours. I like drag racing. I've just always have liked to drag race. And so it's important to be able to leave from a stop. And so I knew that if I ran a larger turbo, I would have some lag. But I had also decided that if I had too much lag, then I would change things like overall wheel height to kind of give me like a differential gear change, kind of low, to give me a little bit tighter so it rev faster. Okay, so I was kind of really apprehensive about seeing where the boost came on here. The boost comes on around 3200, and for T3 T4 hybrid, that's pretty good, or on average. It was between 32 and 33. I was trying to watch the air-fuel ratio gauge to make sure, because it was the first time me getting into boost, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't going lean, and I didn't. As a matter of fact, on this gauge here, if it's below 9, it'll read RCH for rich, and it was going below 9. When I came back, odd thing, if I do have a boost leak, or I suspect perhaps I don't have a boost leak, because when I upped it with the Grimspeed, it got into the 10s. I could still have a boost leak. It's just that there's more pressure. Maybe the hole is that big and there's enough, the more you up the pressure, it's still leaking out, but a lot more pressure is getting by, and that was leaning me out a little bit, which got me into the tens. Still only 6 pounds. So again, we're going to check it for boost leaks. But anyway, on fuel, the response of the turbo is right where I expected it to be. It feels good for just 5 to 6 pounds coming on the linear power delivery that it has. It's going to be a real good drag car for me. And like I said, if it's more than I thought, once I'm able to get it to full 10, 12 pounds wherever I'm gonna run, I'm gonna go ahead and mess with the wheels. I had wanted to do that anyway because I have the Wings West lip kit and I have some side skirts, some skirts to put on where all the wheels are at. And I'm gonna try my hand at some body work here very shortly. I've got the rear for the Wings West kit taped on here right now so I could get my pipe positioning correct. And I've had that whole kit taped on here before just to check fitment and see how it would look with the fender flares on there. And I like the fender flare look. It's just that the fender flares that I have right now, they're about 3.5 inches at their widest point, which is like 12 o'clock over the tire. But as they come down, they taper down to next to nothing. I want fender flares that pretty much hold that 3.5 the whole way around, and then I want to blend those into the sides. Of course, we're going to be using the wheels that I'm going to get. They're just black steelies, basically. A lot of circuit. I forget which type of class that these are typically used in. I'll have to let you know. So I'll have anyone updated. Obviously, I'll have a picture. They're plain black with a red line going around them, and they're called D spokes. They have like 4 D. They're 4x100, and they have a 2.5 or 3 inch back space on them. So they're coming out basically. I don't know the offset. They figured it out for me, but it's enough to where I'm not going to have to worry about it as I can put a wider tire on there. They're 8-inch rims, and so I can put a wider tire to help out with traction and stuff like that. Plus, I want an overall wide look coupled with the fender flares and all that. So that's going to be down the future. We're just trying to work through the little gremlins here. So for fuel, first, you know, if you've been paying attention to the updates real quick, and I don't want to go too long for this because I don't like hearing myself talk, but I'm going to be using the Unichip standalone. That's not a standalone per se, it's a piggyback. I love what it's about. I love what it does. I love the fact that you don't have to have be a world-class tuner to get in there like I did with the electromotive setup, where every parameter is removed and taken away, and after it's all said and done. Back then it was an issue because it was a 95 back in 99, and the check engine light was on as a result, because you're not just intercepting and changing the signals, you're removing the computer's control away completely. And so if you're running the stock PCM for things like air conditioning and you know, like BCM, you have a BCM in there, but for other things, anything that the stock PCM would control, you're leaving it in there for that. Well, check engine light's coming on, and you can't pass state inspection like that. And I was able to find some workarounds on that, and but I don't want to do that anymore. This is a 97. 2 more years it would be considered a classic, and I'll just have to pass safety. But the main facet that I'm going to have on there is complete fuel control, complete timing control for an invested $600. And you'll say, "Oh, Kurt, I can get a Mega Squirt for that." I'm not interested in Mega Squirt. Mega Squirt will still have you intercepting all the signals. You'll still have a check engine light after that. My observations of the Mega Squirt, there must be several people that have had success with it, but probably times 10 that haven't. And that goes from the building of it to the tuning of it. And then if you buy the one that's already built for you, just the tuning side, people sometimes can't wrap their heads around it. They blow their motor and then you never hear from them again. They're parting their crap out. So real quick, I just want to touch on a couple things. Right now, just like with the T25 setup, and I ran that thing 2-3 years on that system, ran great. Through some adjustment and playing with the fuel, I was trying to get it perfect where, because the pump that I have in here provides me more than enough fuel. I've got 260 cc or 26, whatever, it doesn't come out the exact, it's 26 pound injectors in here right now. My air fuel ratios on that system on the T25 running 12 pounds, I could get it into the 11, 10 and a half, somewhere. I had plenty of room to tune on that. That's at wide open throttle. Timing on it, when I observed it, it was 14 degrees basically, and that's just using these little handheld scan tools and stuff like that. That prior setup for fuel control and timing, I basically had no timing control whatsoever, except to run highest octane fuel, 2-step coulter heat range plugs. I had low compression pistons, they were 8.5. And then an octane booster. And the only reason I started running an octane booster was I stopped at Shell one day, put in, I thought 91 octane, took off, got on it, heard the marble in a can sound. So I went right back, told the person, hey, look, I just filled up, I was out, filled up, and he wasn't surprised. And it dawned on me at that point, I remember a guy I used to work with told me he worked at a gas station for many, many, many years. And when a truck would come in with, say, 87 octane or 89, if they topped off the tank and yet the order had more in the tanker, they would dump it into one of the other tanks, which that will dilute the octane rating of the others. So I started running octane booster just in the off chance that something like that would happen again. I don't want to pay for it with a motor. So, but that's why, and so outside of that, no timing control. But you know what? Whenever I did that, I could run boost all day long in the hot summer and everything like that. I would dog this car. I drove it like I was trying to break it and performed flawless. It was wonderful. Fun as heck. I love that car. Problem is, of course, like I said, drag racing, coming from a hole, wasn't happening. So in this setup right here, I'm not staying with what I have, okay? Right now, yes, it's still going to be relying on 2-step coulter plugs and all the other stuff I mentioned for timing. For fuel, I'm still using the 26 pound injectors, and I'm still using that veggie FMU. And right now, if a lot of you watching, a lot of the critics, if you stand up off your chair right now, you're going to notice a hole missing out of the vinyl or the leather about that big. Your butt sucked it up. And so you're going to want to go pull that out before it causes you some problems. And the reason I say that, because the reason I did that whole T25 the way I did it, because everybody was telling me that you couldn't do that. And they were saying, oh, that's an old school way of doing it. Ha, 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 ha. You're an asshat and all these other things. And I wasn't interested in buying a engine management system. I wasn't interested in installing it. I wasn't interested in tuning it if there was a viable option. And I honestly didn't have the answer when I first started doing this. And so I went ahead and went for it. And like I said, it worked flawlessly. There was some tuning that I had to do on the FMU that you'll have to do. That's just the way it is. With a T25, with the boost coming on so quick like that, the veggie unit or the Cartec, whatever you want to call it, you need that feature called onset of gain. The reason is because the intake manifold will pressurize before you actually get your foot far enough to tell the computer to spray more fuel to compensate for the boost. Now here's a quick story, and it's the same people that have take me to task on this. They make fun of me for it, but it's a good reason why it happened. And it just goes to show you that back then I was doing things that I didn't have answers for as to why they happened, but I have them now. And everybody wants to try to look at those past failures and try to put that on me as if that's something that I need to live my life by. No, there's a reason it happened. Y'all didn't know it at that time, and neither did I. I found out, but by the time I found out, it was years later. People that were berating me for it were using cars that had quicker responding systems and stuff like that. Anyway, quickly, this rising rate fuel pressure regulator, there's a lot of FMUs out there. A lot of them are just 1-to-1, and you can adjust it 2-to-1, 5-to-1, 6-to-1, 11-to-1, whatever it is, you can adjust it. So every pound of boost, the fuel pressure will increase whatever you've got that ratio set to. But that won't help you in my situation. 2 strikes was 95 cars run OBD1 computers. They're slow, okay? Number two, the turbo I was running was a small turbo, spooled up almost immediately. So those two things combined caused a lean spot right on tip in. That was enough, and I proved it. It was enough to pop your motor because it kept happening over and over. Just didn't do it the first time. I just kept trying to get to that point where it wouldn't do it. On the first turbo kit that this happened on, this was back in 98, late 97, 98 that I was into this. I was one of 3 people putting a turbo kit on their Saturns. The other person had done it. The kit that I bought, his was the test mule for it. And the other guy that bought it and installed it with success was a guy named Alex in California or Washington, one of the two. Anyway, he apparently, and I talked to him for a little while, he totaled his car. It was an accident, he got hit or something. Anyway, the pressure regulator that came with was just a standard, I mean, it was like a Bosch one. There was no adjustability on it, I don't think so. I don't remember. But anyway, because I was having those issues, I ended up buying a rising weight pressure regulator from Nitrous and Aeromotive. So those two, I figured those are 2 great companies. This guy's including a little chintzy piece of junk regulator. Maybe the whole problem's that. Well, I put those on, same problem. Ended up buying a Kenny Bell booster pump, thinking my pump wasn't enough. And keep in mind, this was only a 5-pound system that the guy said he had put on another guy's car. Several cars worked just fine. Well, it turns out the guy's car that he put it on, he popped the motor twice in it. So all that wasn't shared with me. Again, I don't have forums to get on and try to get help and say, hey, anybody notice how their car goes really lean at 3 pounds and all that? Nobody to help me. So long story short, ended up popping that motor, rebuilt it, put the Electromotive Tech 2 on it, drove to Spring Hill, Tennessee for the 1999 rally, there and back from Houston to Spring Hill, Tennessee. So it worked. Everything was fine. But by that time, obviously, the control of the stock PCM in every facet's gone. It's being controlled by the Electromotive. So I never did have my question answered as to why that system popped like that. So I happened to buy a book by Corky Bell called Maximum Boost. And at that time, I was always reading how to performance 4-cylinder engines and all this stuff, build your own exhaust, build your own intakes, and so forth. And I literally, when I read in that book, there was a section there, a paragraph he had dedicated to what had happened to me, and had said that it was because of slow systems like OBD1s, small turbos that spooled up quickly. There's a lean spot of around 3 pounds that'll happen. You can pop your motor. I wrote that dude, and I said, man, you wouldn't believe this. And I told him what had happened to me and all the crap I caught for it. By then, though, people that are turboing their cars with success, these guys on the forums and stuff that had a good laugh at my expense, these guys are doing it on OBD2s. They're running large if it's not an OBD2 and it's an OBD1, they're running larger turbos that don't spool up that fast, so that by the time the car's throttle response, the TPS is into it, you're not in any boost. Boost comes on later. By then, the car's ready. So there was a lot of reasons why people didn't see what I saw. And having ran several boost setups on these cars before, I've had success every other time. But it was kind of rewarding to finally hear, and it vindicated me in my mind. Now the other guys that love having a laugh about it, they're not going to allow that, because that's what they live by. They live on that. That's what they remember. They're idiots, just guys that I pity them. I pity those people that can't let something like that go, especially after you find out why it happened. And it turns out that it wasn't because I was an idiot. It's because that's what was happening, and I didn't know it. And I was working off the assumption that the kit that guy made, he slacked it on a bunch of other cars, and it worked just fine. So why is mine working like that? And I should add, too, that the kit that the guy said he was slapping on other cars, that was on, I think the guy had the new body style like this. It was at least a 97, because this is when this body style came out. So it was OBD2, and mine was OBD1. Clearly, even he didn't understand why that was happening, because I worked with that guy for weeks trying to get that ready. And what had happened was, just really quickly, this guy, Bill Deeps, who I guess he thinks he's kind of like Mark Twain, had to go by a pseudonym for some reason. His name was John Letourneau. He talks a lot of smack about me online, or has in the past. He's probably moved on to bigger and better things. But his understanding was that I blew my motor when I didn't come to his rally that he had, this SPC Club's rally, but that's not what happened. I had not blown my motor yet. I was trying to work out the bugs on the fuel system, and that's why I couldn't make it to his. But I think that was in '98 possibly. Obviously, after that, I did blow the motor, rebuilt it, put the Tech 2, the Electromotive Tech 2 on it, and drove to Spring Hill. So, you know, it doesn't matter. I'm not hung up on it so much so. It's just that people's understandings of my past with these cars is so far off of reality. It blows my mind. And they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to be educated. They don't want to, they're not, in other words, they're not going to eat crow. Okay, what they believe, no matter what happened, moving on. So anyway, what's next for this deal? Talked about the exhaust. I get that done. I'm probably going to, well, I'm the kind of person I can't move on from something until I get it fixed and corrected. So I'll do the pressure test on the intake system. After that, finish the exhaust out. With the 2 resonators, that should be manageable. If not, I have no room to put a big muffler in the the channel that goes up in the middle of the car. I've got both the intake and the exhaust pipe stacked there, and I will get it up. We'll go through the whole thing. You'll get to see everything that I did. So it's just going to have to be what it is at that point. After that, I'm going to turn my attention toward the interior. I had talked about the exterior. I was going to get a wrap. I'm not. The longevity of those things, the fact that whoever does it today probably won't be around in 6 months to warranty anything, no, thank you. But I'm not going to go expensive on it. I'm probably going to get a Mako paint job, but their best Mako paint job. I'm going to clear coat the carbon fiber hood. Talked about the wheels and tires. They're going to be wide. Inside, there's a guy called Boosted Miata. I look at his channel, and he reviews products and stuff that he puts in his Miata and stuff, and he's got this big screen that can take apps off of Android, and specifically the Torque app that allows you to put all your gauges up on there, and that's going to be a nice thing. That's what I'm going to be doing for the radio. I'm going to tear pretty much all the amps and stuff that I got in this thing out and just kind of streamline. Gone are the days where I like to have my heart skip a couple beats when the bass is really thumping, you know. So I just want a quality system, simple system, but I'm more into the visual of the, you know, having the big screen for the visual of it. I thought about changing out the steering wheel to a Sparco, but I kind of like to have airbags in case something happens like it has to me before. And then after that, after the paint job, it's done. For the unit chip, real quick, what I'm waiting on right now, as of the 21st, I had to be laid off because I was the highest paid guy at the shop. It's a 4-store chain, and it made sense that my owner that let me go, he ended up got pretty emotional during the time, because this isn't something that anybody planned for. There's nobody's performance and stuff caused it to happen, but being the highest paid guy there and still having 2 service riders on the front counter that can do with the load that we were seeing on an average day, one store, our store, on a slow day, we would probably make $7,000 to $8,000 on a slow day. We're right now making about $7,000 company wide. So he let several people go, even let his own brother go, which I'm sure was hard. He's close to retirement anyway, but right when we started talking about that, that's when he got emotional, and it's a bad situation. He's actually, as soon as things pick up, he's calling me back. I'm rest assured on that. But in the meantime, obviously, I'm pinching back, cutting back on things that, unless I've already got the parts here, which I typically do. I'm the kind of guy who'll buy a part months in advance, and when I get ready to do it, I have what I need, so I don't have to suddenly decide, hey, it's Saturday, I got a day off, let me go ahead and order these parts and get them here. So it ain't gonna work like that. So the interior, I should mention on the interior as well, I've got the door panels off right now. I'm going to have the cloth inserts leathered. I'm going to leather the rear. This was an SC1 that I put the dual area head cam in. It's got crank windows. I'm perfectly fine with that. But I do want to do the interior, leather this. I got the Toyota Celica GT seats in here, and I'm going to leather the back seats and leather the side inserts. And short of that, and the display, that's it. Carpet is basically was brand new. I took that out to do the wiring and stuff under the floor, and then of course the paint job after that. But anyway, this thing's getting too long. Thanks for checking it out. I appreciate the time. I do this to help, obviously. I did this one in particular just to break the monotony of putting turbo kits in a car. Anyone can do that. Always, the fun part is when you're watching people online that do turbo kits on a Honda or something like that. First start on the Honda, you know, well, it doesn't matter. The car should, if the car was running before you started it and you put a turbo kit on it, it should start and idle fine just like it did before. It's not, there's no real excitement there. You got to take it out and drive it, just like we're doing today, and figure out the problems in. But I like doing this because it was a challenge. I know in the small Saturn world that there is today, even before then, no one's done a rear mount on a Saturn. So I was glad to kind of knock that out and get that done. The next and final thing that I'm going to do for the Saturn, and then after that I'll probably disappear from the scene. Of course, I'm going to install the unit chip on this. I am literally going to put a GoPro on my head, and I'm going to take you step by step on how to program those things. Also, the reason the unit chip's not getting put on right this very minute, the reason I was talking about the job, is because I want to buy an oscilloscope. They've got some really nice handheld ones today. You don't have to buy these big overnight bags sized units anymore. But you need an oscilloscope. There's a couple things on the unit chip that you have to identify. The purple and yellow wires coming off the crank sensor, both of those, the signal on that, you have to find out which one's positive, which one's negative, and you need an oscilloscope to figure that out. But also, it needs a good 12-volt signal with very little noise on it. And so that's not coming off the battery. It's not coming off the 12-volt, the PCM. So I've got to hunt for that. And again, I don't have my good friends out there in Saturn land to help me out, because I know nobody out there has done unit chips before. At that point, I can see that unit chip is very underrepresented in this country. You'll find it in Asia, Australia, New Zealand, that kind of stuff. And I guess it's because it's a piggyback, and for makes of cars like Hondas and Toyotas, they have full standalones available and stuff like that. But what about those cars that you don't have anything pretty much for? Can you take a fast, and can you take an AM? Can you take all these different brands and put it? Sure. But like I said, afterwards you're going to have a check engine light. Except in the Hondas, I think you can, I've been watching those. I haven't dedicated a lot of attention to that, but I think you can go in and play with the signals and all that stuff, and to where the check engine light will come on. But the unit chip, it just doesn't control fuel and timing. It does practically everything. We're not talking about what the piggybacks of old used to be able to do. This is a fantastic system. And so I'm super excited about putting that on this car. Then I'll finally have full control of timing, full control of fueling. I'm not going to go over everything it can do, because it can do a lot. But when I get to the point where I'm putting it in, I am actually going to make up the wiring diagram, colored chart with the wires and everything, where you tap into them, where you go to look up the signal for on parameters and stuff like that. And you'll have that available to you if you decide to go this route as well. Like I said, I got the system that I have, and I actually bought a few extra pieces than what you really need, and I was like $600 into it. So I'm really excited about that, getting that done for you guys. After that, my final project, I want to go all out. I want, there's a company, if you watch LHT Performance, search for them on YouTube. Really nice. The guys are mature. They don't blow shit up just for fun. They're real mature. Love watching them. They do a lot of Honda S2000s, Honda Civics, custom builds and stuff like that. They do other work, but primarily that's what their channel's based on. Quality work, quality folks. But they use I forget the name of the company, but it's for like, it's like a block guard, but they basically, it's not. It really makes the engine super strong, and it's going in and replacing the cylinder sleeves and stuff like that. So I'm going to use them. I am going to get a custom head gasket made, but I want to run a stroked 2-liter low compression boosted. Now I may even have to go that low once I have the unit chip all worked out, because then I can mess with timing. But I want to kind of do a Hail Mary, just really shoot for the fence on it. And that'll be my final project that I'm going to do. Outside of that, I've got my Viper. The project I'm talking about, I'm going to finally put it in that 95 and get that up and running for the track. It's kind of the things left undone kind of deal, bucket list. So I'm going to get that done. I thought about doing that, or if you can't beat them, join them. I'm going to build a similar motor. It would be a K24 bottom end with a K20A cylinder head setup. It's a Honda, and but I'm going to put it in the Saturn. Okay, so I'm going to do I'm going to just do a complete swap of the engine and everything over. I've been practicing my welding. You need to eliminate all things that you can if you're going to do something like that. Welding's one of them. So I've been practicing on that, getting better on that. I'm about to invest in a decent welder, something that has gas and not just the flux core. But if the reason I won't do the Saturn is because finding the pistons and rods, they're expensive. They're so expensive. But I think my daughter just came out. Real quick to sum up, I may end up putting that swap in there. That way I'll have a 800 horse capable engine, 600, whatever I want to do with it. But the Hondas are just, you can't beat them. You just can't beat them. The power that they put down is unbelievable. And that may be what I finish up with, doing that Honda swap. That'll be a major undertaking. It'll be fun because I know no Saturn's ever done that before as far as what I can tell. So look for that coming up. That will be the last thing I do. And that's the last you'll hear of Kurt Bennett and Saturns. And some people cheered. Well, anyway, talk to you later.